right, guys, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be learning about something called exponents or exponential form. And an exponent is basically following the pattern of 10. Okay, so in your papers, you do have a chart. I don't want to show you what it completely looks like, but it kind of looks a little bit like this. It's lesson 3 template, and it has 10, 100, 1,000, well, it just has the 10, and then we're going to fill everything else in. So when I see the number 10, I can go 10 times 1 is going to give me 10. So 10 is 10 to the first power. It's a little teeny tiny 1, okay? So now I've got 100. Well, 100 is actually 10 times 10. So then this is where you see 10 to the second. That you know right there, you're going to do 10 times 10, and it's going to give you 100. Then you're going to have 1,000. And when I know 1,000, I'm going to take 10 times 10 times 10. That's going to equal 1,000. So when I write it in exponential form, it's actually 10 to the third. So then 10 to the third, I know is 10 times 10 times 10. I know it equals 1,000. Okay, hopefully you guys are kind of seeing a little bit of a pattern here because now I have 10,000. So I've got 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Well, when I count it up, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tens. So it's 10 to the fourth. Okay, so I know 10 to the fourth is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And then I know that that equals 10,000. Okay, the next one I have 100,000. I know that it's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And if I count it up, I have 5 tens. So it's 10 to the fifth is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, which is 100,000. Okay, I can now move to a million, and it's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And if I count them up, I have 6 tens, so it's 10 to the sixth. That I know, 10 to the sixth is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, and that equals a million. One fun thing that you have is that if you kind of look at this, how many zeros does 10 have? Well, it has 1, so that's 10 to the first. How many zeros does 100 have? It has 2, so there's 10 to the second. I have 10 to the third. How many zeros does 1,000 have? 3. That's where you get your third. 10,000 has 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 10 to the fourth. 100,000 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 10 to the fifth. A million has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros, and it's 10 to the sixth. So if you look at this, you can kind of already say, well, if I see this 10, if I see 10 to the third, I know I need to have a total of 3 zeros. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do some problems. And the first thing they want you to do is they want you to write this in exponential form. So the one thing that you always want to remember is whenever you're in exponential form, it's the power of 10. So no matter what, it's always going to be 10. So I've got 10. And I want to look here. How many zeros do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I know that it's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, which is 10 to the fourth. Okay, look here for 1,000. I have 10. Okay, think about how many zeros do I have? Well, I have 1, 2, 3. So it's 10 to the third because it's 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. What is 10 times 10? Well, 10 times 10 is 100. Okay, or you know that it's going to be 10. And how many times did I multiply 10? 2. So it's 10 to the second. Okay. If I do this 100 times 100, I know that that's going to be 10,000. Okay, so it's going to be 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 to the fourth. One thing you can also think about is 100 is 10 times 10, 100 is 10 times 10, and you can look to see, well, I've got 4 tens there. Okay, I've got a million. It's going to be 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 to the sixth because I've got those zeros. Then this one is 1,000 times 1,000, okay? So 1,000 times 1,000 is actually going to be a million, okay? So then when I do this, it's going to be 10 to the 6th, okay? You might not have to necessarily solve this because what you can do is you can count how many zeros you have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 zeros, and that's how you get that 6. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually solve this 9 times 10 to the third. Okay, so I'm going to use my place value chart for this one. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of move this kind of back and forth. So I've got 9, and remember when I multiply 10 to the thirds, I'm going to get bigger, so I'm going to move to the left. And when it says 10 to the thirds, I can kind of think about this. Well, I either know I'm going to move it 1,000, or I can see, well, that's a 3. So that means I'm going to move this 3 place values over. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have 9. And then remember, I've got to fill in these place values until I get to that decimal because I can't just leave them blank. So this answer is, sorry, my marker's not going on my lid, is 9,000. Okay. My next one I have is 39 times 10 to the fourth. So I'm going to go 39. So here's 39. And 10 to the fourth, I'm going to move it 4 decimal spot or 4 place values. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is where this is going to go. So 3, 9. How many zeros did I just add? 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. And it was 10 to the fourth. I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of a pattern here. So it's going to be 39, 390,000. Okay. So now I'm going to go a little bit different, and this says 7,200. So 7,200, and I'm going to divide it by 10 to the second. So that means when I divide, I'm going to be going the opposite way. So that's division. This is multiplying. My number is going to get smaller. 10 to the second means I'm going to move it 2 place values over. And my answer is 72. I think there is going to be a little bit of a pattern here. This next one is 7,200,000. And it looks like I'm going to divide it by 10 to the third. So I'm going to move it 3 place values over. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3. So I've done the 1, 2, 3. Here's a 0. Here's 0. My 2 and my 7. So this is going to be 7,200. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do a couple more, and then we'll talk about what our problems are, okay, or what our potential pattern is here. So this next one is 4 and 25 thousandths, okay, times 10 to the 3. So I'm going to move it 3 place values over, 1, 2, 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill these in, and that's 4,025. Okay. And I'm going to do 40 and 25 hundredths and times 10 to the fourth. So I'm going to move it 4 place values over, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then my 0, then my 2, then my 5, and then I've got to add these 2 zeros there. So that's going to be 402,500. Okay. And then I have 72 and 5/10, dividing by 10 to the second. So I'm going to move it 2 place values over. And this one just so happens to be 0.725 or 725 thousandths. Okay. And then the last one is going to be 72, or 7 and 2/10, divided by 10 to the second. So move it 2 place values over, and it's going to be 72 thousandths. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and it says, think about the problems in 2A through D. So in 2A through D, what I did right here. And it says, explain the pattern you can use when you're multiplying or dividing whole numbers to the power of 10. So when you're doing this, if you guys want to look, when I'm multiplying, I had 3. Okay, so here's my 9. How many zeros did I add? I added 3. I've got 39 as kind of my base number. And it says 10 to the fourth. So how many zeros did I add? Well, I added 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. On this one, when I'm dividing it, I can be taking away my zeros. So if I had 10 to the second, how many zeros do I take away? 2. And I have 72. On 7,200,000 divided by 10 to the third, I can take away 3 zeros. And I have 7,200. So that's kind of the pattern with that one. On 2E through H, on this one, it says explain the pattern in the decimal. Well, on this one, all you're doing is you're moving the decimal how many numbers it says. So on this one, I'm moving it 3 decimals, so I can move this decimal 1, 2, 3, and that's how I get 4,025. This one I can move it 4, 1, 2, but I've run out, so I just have to add some zeros to help me to get 3 and 4. Okay, now this one on 10 to the second, I have to move it to make my number smaller, so I'm going to go the opposite way. But I'm going to move this decimal place 2 over, and that is how I get 0.725 or 725 thousandths. Same thing here, I'm going to move it 2, but I've run out of space, so I need to add a 0 to make sure that I can get that 2 place values moved over. So that's how I get that 72 hundredths. So there is a pattern with adding zeros, taking zeros away, and then just moving and shifting that decimal.